There is lots to discuss today, and I'd like to start with Friday's jobs report. The president celebrated like it was the greatest victory in America since the end of World War II. And I want to start by trying to give this a little bit of perspective. Speaking conservatively, more than 20 million Americans are still out of work today. And my guess is you're not doing a whole lot of celebrating if you're among the many people who don't know how they're going to pay rent or put food on the table this month. Watching the president celebrate in the midst of this jobs crisis is yet another sign that Donald Trump just doesn't understand what it's like for people born without a real estate portfolio. First, I want to walk through how the Senate got here, starting in March. The pandemic hit, the economy went into lockdown, and unemployment shot into the stratosphere. So when the CARES Act negotiations began, Democrats made our bottom line an expansion to unemployment benefits that would bring more workers into the system and fully replace people's lost wages. Throughout the negotiations, and they went on for days, Secretary Scalia said that couldn't be done because the states run unemployment programs on Bronze Age technology that cannot crunch the numbers for individual workers. Senate Democrats said that doing nothing is just unacceptable when you have this hurt from sea to shining sea. When Secretary Scalia failed to offer a plan to get benefits out in a timely way, Democrats proposed a flat sum solution, $600 per week across the board on top of traditional benefits, adding up to full wage replacement for the typical worker. So let's fast forward now to this afternoon. The pandemic is still killing thousands of Americans each week. The nearly 2 million new unemployment claims filed last week triple the highest number of claims made in any week during the Great Recession. It is a national scandal that African Americans are not only dying of COVID-19 at much higher rates, they're also suffering vastly more economic pain than virtually anybody else. Black unemployment is disproportionately high. And because Black people have systematically been excluded from opportunity and wealth in America, it's a lot less likely that they have the financial resources to weather the storm. For the president to say the recovery has arrived and everything is turning into sunshine is just going to perpetuate the economic injustice. The bottom line is the crisis is going to go on a lot longer. If the Trump administration and Senate Republicans start yanking out these key pillars of economic support, like supercharged unemployment benefits, much of which go to the lowest paid folks in the workforce, Main Street businesses nationwide, so many of them hang on by a thread. Workers could lose their homes and fall through the cracks if the Senate is not in their corner. So, like the chairman, I want to respond to a few arguments that I've heard coming from the other side, arguments against supercharged unemployment benefits. First is the idea that Americans who've lost their jobs in the pandemic are just plenty happy to sit around instead of going back to work. In my view, that is dead wrong, and it's an insult to American workers. It's also a misunderstanding of how the system functions. I've been talking to out-of-work Oregonians throughout this crisis, and what I hear overwhelmingly is they want to work. They want to work. They want to get back to their jobs. They believe deeply in the dignity of work. They want to earn their pay, support their families, and return to their lives, the lives they had before this pandemic. And most importantly, they know that the path to getting ahead in America is moving up the economic ladder rather than being on unemployment. Second, members of this committee have said it's somehow unhealthy for people to get unemployment benefits during the crisis. I sure think this is out of touch with the realities people are facing in this crisis. These benefits are what's saving millions of jobless people from hunger and homelessness in the middle of a pandemic. Forcing people back into a contagious workplace also further spreads the virus that has killed 110,000 Americans and turned nursing homes nationwide into scenes of tragedy. Third, I've heard talk among Republican senators of cutting the expanded benefits, possibly just saying, let's cut them in half. So I want colleagues to really get this one straight. Between the CARES Act and Fed lending programs, big corporations are getting trillions of dollars in support to weather this crisis. And now Senate Republicans are saying, well, we're just going to cut what the little guy gets, maybe in half. The system's already rigged to favor the powerful and the wealthy. The Congress sure shouldn't stack the deck any longer. Our unemployment insurance system created in the 1930s should have been modernized long ago to cover the gig worker, the self-employed, the freelancer. Long ago, benefits should have been tied to economic conditions on the ground. I also believe Congress should examine whether a federal approach for administering unemployment benefits could do a better job than the quilt of 50 different state systems operating today. Nobody predicted the volume of claims we're seeing. But whether it's due to neglect or political sabotage, too many of these state systems are failing the people who are desperate for help. I'm going to close with one final thought. American workers are not to blame for the jobs crisis that the country faces today. By now, everybody has seen images of cars stacked up for miles at food bank distribution centers around the country. I gave out food just recently at one of them. Colleagues, these are modern-day bread lines. With so many people out of work, America is on the precipice of an eviction tsunami, particularly in the Black community. Supercharging unemployment benefits, fully replacing people's lost wages, bringing gig workers and freelancers into the system was the right thing to do. And I know that's not just the opinion of Democrats who got it done, because right now the president absurdly is taking credit for the expansion in misleading campaign ads on the airwaves right now. It is also a fact that every Republican member of this committee voted to strip the expanded benefits and slow down their distribution. And at least a few turned around and then sent out press releases touting the expansion that they voted against. Colleagues, that is some serious chutzpah. So the Senate now has a choice. It's about fairness for the tens of millions out of work. It's about fairness for African Americans who are disproportionately suffering. It's about fairness for the blue-collar worker who looks around and sees a whole lot more support going to a bunch of multinational corporations than to hard-hit workers like them who've done nothing wrong. The only choice is to make an extension of supercharged unemployment benefits, and to do it now